There's just something about Final Fantasy XIII that always enticed me about it that I could never place my finger on. Maybe it was the memories of my dad and I playing it on his PS3 and falling in love with the world, or maybe it was something about how the characters were portrayed. Either way, I know for sure this is what ignited my love for the Final Fantasy series and JRPGs in general. Welcome back to Backlog Worthy. Let's talk about Final Fantasy XIII. Again. Right out of the gate, I really want to talk about this mechanic. For some reason, I really love the Crystarium system in Final Fantasy XIII. To start off with, the whole mechanic is just pretty to look at. As you level up and obtain more tiers, I kind of feel as if you can see how much a character has grown, even if it's from a more statistical standpoint. To bounce off that mechanic a bit, each character has access to only so many Crystariums throughout your playthrough of the game. Each Crystarium constitutes a role for each character, known as a paradigm. These paradigms are known as Commando, Ravager, Sentinel, Saboteur, Synergist, and Medic. And to make it seem a little less complicated, they're pretty much the Attacker, Blaster, Defender, Jammer, Enhancer, and Healer classes found in other games. Final Fantasy XIII takes the battle system from 7, but adds some of its own flair to make it better. The game can do preset auto-attacking, which is cool, but something I don't really care for. The best part of the combat is the paradigm switching, allowing you to switch your characters to preset classes on the fly. To me, I feel like it helped the combat system stay fresh. Another aspect of combat are Eidolons, which are the summons for this game. I will admit, I thought they were pretty cool. Each character has the ability to summon theirs after they falter from their own personal paths. These Eidolons attack alongside their summoner for a bit, while the rest of the party temporarily sit on the sidelines. When you activate Gestalt mode, the battle system becomes a bit more action-oriented, which is always a nice change of pace. The story and world are usually some of my favorite things when it comes to JRPGs. Sadly, there are some glaring issues that come with Final Fantasy XIII and the worlds of Gran and Cocoon. The main complaints I've always seen about this game was the linearity, and once I took off my nostalgia glasses, man did I understand what they were talking about. Most of the main areas that we traverse through are pretty much hallways. I can understand it to a degree as it forces the player to progress through a natural story, but unfortunately it left no room for exploration. The game does end up becoming open world in Chapter 11, which is not really a good thing since it ends at Chapter 13. I felt like the exploration of Gran was fun while it lasted, but it came way too late in the game. Despite the lack of explorability during the majority of Final Fantasy XIII, I feel like Square Enix did a great job creating a beautiful world to experience. I hate this though. It provides a lackluster total experience when they give the player this beautiful world that surrounds them, but confines us to a mere hallway. I would have to say that the main cast of characters are one of the saving graces in this game. Without them, I feel like Final Fantasy XIII would be pretty bland for a 40-hour playthrough. Lightning is the main playable character in Final Fantasy XIII. To me, she's not the worst character I've had the honor of playing in a video game, but she certainly isn't the best either. She starts off as a distant and cold character at the start of the game, but grows to be a bit more open later on. The best way that I could explain her is that Square Enix wanted to capture what made Cloud a cool protagonist in Final Fantasy VII, and somehow messed it up transferring it to Lightning. Snow is another one of the main characters and is the leader of Nora, which stands for No Obligations, Rules, or Authority. He's a very protective character, which can be seen with both his want to help Sarah, Lightning's sister, complete her focus, as well as literally with his role as a sentinel in battle. Vanille is a happy-go-lucky character with a pretty dark background, especially for a 19-year-old. She joins the party after a failed purge, which is the rid cocoon of impurities. Her interactions with the party are some of my favorites. They start off as lighthearted at the start of the game, but start to progress to become deeper and darker during the course of your adventure. Sazh is easily my favorite character in Final Fantasy XIII. His entire character and story are heartbreaking, as seen as the story progresses in both Final Fantasy XIII-2 and Lightning Returns Final Fantasy XIII. Sazh has a chocobo chick living in his afro, which I think is cool. He's lost his wife, and his son is encased in crystal, but he's trying to do whatever he can to save him. Hope is who I believe is the weakest character in the world of Final Fantasy XIII. He does a lot of complaining, while warranted, is annoying. In the first cutscene, his mom dies by the hand of Psycom, and he blames it on Snow. He joins the party, and for a good chunk of the game, his entire story arc is just trying to get his revenge. Fang is best friends with Vanille, and I'd even go as far as saying they're partners with how they interact with one another. Don't take my word for it though, I'm just a guy on the internet. The music of Final Fantasy XIII is honestly a mixed bag. On one hand, you have music that sounds whimsical and fits the mood for specific scenes you can find yourself in, and on the other hand, there's some music that really fits battles and some that don't. There's a few issues with the music that I could talk about, but it doesn't really belong in this review. If you want to hear what I have to say about it, let me know in the comments and I might make a video on it. The entirety of Final Fantasy XIII is a melancholic adventure, one full of loss and sadness, but with undertones of hope. Take a listen to the music from the title screen. Just turning on the game and staring at the game select screen, you're already met with the mood that you're going to be finding yourself encountering throughout this entire playthrough. This game still looks great to me, even 13 years later after I first saw it at the age of 9 with my dad. I don't know if it's nostalgia blinding me, the graphics card in my PC, or I'm just bad at picking games, but there's just something about this game that I really enjoy when it comes to the world design. Speaking of the world, I enjoyed every second walking through it. It seemed like every sound, every footstep, everything stood out and popped more than I thought. Final Fantasy XIII is honestly one of my favorite Final Fantasy games to date, and I might even go as far as to say it's one of my favorite games of all time. That being said, I'm happy that I could come back and talk about this game with a better reviewer lens than the original. Final Fantasy XIII gets an 8 out of 10 for me. This game makes some decent strides in the right direction, but sadly fumbles the ball when it comes to creating a world that is worth exploring to its fullest extent. The characters and the music are good enough to keep players, or maybe just myself, progressing through the game and reach the end credits.